Well, now a real lovely surprise, and it's typical of this sort of event that walking around the corner about an hour ago was Jane Goodall. Fortunately I recognized Jane. I've met her before. Jane is a primatologist, an environmentalist, someone who's done as much as anybody to, I think, bring to all of us an awareness of the natural world, initially with the wonderful relationships with chimpanzees and other primates. But since then has done a lot, and especially with young people in the Roots and Shoots program, and just talking around the world to bring us more in touch with the world that we're very much part of. So Jane, welcome, and love to know what brings you here. I mean, I'm sure there are many levels, but what's your prime work here today?
Well, the prime work here is to meet with and talk about the RED program that we're involved in Tanzania. And it's actually a very exciting new program which we're working on with Google Earth. It's called the South-South Initiative, and it's using technology which has been created by Google Earth, like small cell phones, for indigenous people, local communities living around the forest to be able to monitor their own forest resources. And by doing this year after year, to ensure that they say they want to preserve the forest, are they preserving the forest? And in this way, you know, hopefully this will improve the forest services, as they're called, and enable these communities, when they get RED money, it's from the carbon polluting industries, to start their own projects which will enable them to develop a sustainable lifestyle and protect the forest. I mean, it's a short-term solution at the best to have carbon trading. On the other hand, because the tropical forests are such wonderful carbon sinks, and because so much CO2 is released every time a forest is cut down, especially in the tropics, saving the forest, as Nicholas Stern said, is one of the cheapest and most efficient ways of slowing down global warming.
One of the questions that always occurs to me about saving the forest, which I think a lot of us in the North have finally got that message, is can one assume that it's always what the indigenous people themselves feel about their own forest?
I think that different people living around the forest have different feelings for their forest. Whether any of them feel about a forest the way I do, I don't know. But there are, sadly, people today who are thinking of forests simply in terms of, you know, what they can provide for us. Clean air, clean water, you know, more fertile soils, and sequestering CO2. But for me, a forest is very spiritual. And if you go into an unlogged old-growth forest, it's a magic place to be, and there's all this interrelatedness of life forms and rich biodiversity. So for me, it's more than just providing services. It's providing a spiritual enrichment that I think we need.
My sense is that the RED program, to some people, is actually quite controversial. I'm hoping you could spell that out for me, because I haven't quite understood the pros and cons. Could you see it a little bit that way? Could you?
Well, it's fairly new for me too, and I think it's fairly new for most people. So I can't say that I'm absolutely up to speed with it. But one of the criticisms that I've heard said is that, oh well, all the people living around the forest will just be like on welfare, and it's going to hand them money, and they'll fall into some kind of, you know, nanny state situation. But that is absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, not the idea for the use of the RED money. That will be to develop alternative and sustainable lifestyles compatible with protecting the forest. And, you know, as I already said, this is not a long-term solution. We have to develop energy sources that are free from fossil fuels and destruction.
I think we got a question from Twitter at all.
Yeah, well, this actually came up earlier in the day in our discussions. You were talking about the spiritual nature of being in the forest. So many, I think, Americans, I know where I live, have never really had that experience of being in a rainforest or being in many of the places you've been. How do those people start to really connect with these issues and these ideas if they've never had the chance to travel?
It's tough, and I think the best we can do is video. And I think, I don't know, but in the UK they just launched Avatar, this new 3D science fiction movie, and apparently it's completely amazing because it's in 3D, and that you feel that you're there, and that although these creatures are alien, after a bit you feel completely familiar. So I was thinking when I read about that, well, perhaps this is a way for helping people to understand the feeling inside a forest. Maybe that could be a technology that we do try to take the young people in our youth program out into nature. And it doesn't have to be a big forest. If you can just get away from the sound of, or the close-up sound of cars and aeroplanes for a little while, and be with big trees where there's moss on the ground and the wind going through the leaves, and perhaps lie on the ground and look up through the leaves. You don't have to be in a big tropical rainforest to get the feeling that trees matter, that trees are like individual beings. They've been there sometimes a very long time, and they're special.